You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Hamas to release 6 Israeli hostages in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. The second phase of the Gaza truce talks to begin in coming days. The US pushes Ukraine to sign critical minerals deals soon. Trump says Zelensky and Putin must get together to end the conflict. Indian origin Kash Patel is sworn in as the FBI director in Washington. He takes oath on the Bhagavad Gita. Political parties in Germany are into the last leg of campaigning for Sunday's voting. Polls show mainstream parties losing steam, while far right and far left gain ground. And in sports, injury hit Australia to face England in their opening match of the Champions Trophy in Lahore on Saturday. Hamas will release 6 hostages on Saturday in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. This is part of a hostage-prisoner swap under the ongoing Gaza ceasefire deal. The 6, the last living hostages from the group of 33 due to be freed in the first stage of the ceasefire deal agreed last month, were expected to be handed over at around 6:30 GMT. 4 of the hostages were seized by Hamas gunmen during their attack on Israel on October 7, 2023. Now, another 2 have been held by Hamas since they entered Gaza separately under unexplained circumstances around a decade ago. After this release is concluded, there will be 4 remaining bodies of Israeli captives to be handed over, and that would conclude phase 1 of the ceasefire agreement, which ends on March 1. The second phase of the Gaza truce talks are expected to begin in the coming days. Now, Hamas has handed over the mortal remains of the Israeli hostage Shiri Bibas, whose misidentification in the handover this week threatened to derail the fragile Gaza ceasefire deal. Israeli medical authorities said forensic teams were preparing to examine the body, which Hamas transferred via the Red Cross and confirm its identity. Now, the handover comes after the Israeli authorities had accused Hamas of a horrific violation for sending the body of an unidentified person and falsely claiming it to be the Israeli woman in an exchange earlier. Hamas had agreed to hand over the bodies of Shiri Bibas and her 2 young sons along with the remains of a 4th hostage on Thursday under the ceasefire that had halted fighting in Gaza since last month. Let's get you updates from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And advocating for a quick resolution to the ongoing conflict, the US President Donald Trump has called for cooperation between Russian President Vladimir Putin and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He emphasized that Russia was open to negotiating a deal. And Trump held individual talks with both leaders to discuss the matter. Trump, in office for just a month, is pushing for a quick deal to end the conflict and has alarmed Washington's European allies by leaving them and Ukraine out of initial talks with Russia.
I think that President Putin and President Zelensky are going to have to get together because you know what? We want to stop killing millions of people. You have young soldiers being killed. If you saw the pictures that I saw of the battlefield from satellite, you've never seen any pictures like that.
Further, Trump also flagged that a mineral deal with Ukraine was close.
I think we're pretty close, yeah. I think they want it, and they feel good about it, and it's significant, it's a big deal. but they want it, and it keeps us in that country, and they're very happy about it. But it's we get our money back. This should have been signed long before we went in. This should have been signed by Biden, but Biden didn't know too much about what he was doing. The war should have never happened.
The proposed partnership would give the United States access to Ukraine's deposits of critical minerals. Trump wants Ukraine to give U.S. companies access to minerals as compensation for tens of billions of dollars of aid delivered under his predecessor Joe Biden. Meanwhile, Ukraine is seeking security guarantees from the United States in exchange for signing the critical minerals deal. While during his nightly address, Zelensky said that his government was working with Washington on a draft agreement aiming to strengthen weakening relations between the two countries.
The teams of Ukraine and the United States are working on a draft agreement between our governments. This agreement has the potential to strengthen our relations, and most importantly, the details must be arranged in a way that ensures it works. I hope for a fair result.
Germany heads to snap elections on Sunday after the collapse of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's coalition. With 4 key contenders in the race, the outcome will determine Germany's fate and influence Europe's political direction. Let's look at this report.
Germany is set to hold a snap national election on Sunday, February 23rd, following the collapse of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's three-way coalition. The election has triggered extensive debates across the country on topics ranging from the economy and migration to Germany's role in the European Union. With 4 major contenders vying for the chancellorship, the results will not only determine Germany's future, but also impact the broader European landscape. First up, Friedrich Merz. A seasoned politician, Merz is widely expected to become Germany's next chancellor. Leading the conservative CDU-CSU alliance, Merz is a known advocate for tax cuts and deregulation. His campaign focuses on revitalizing the economy while balancing the conservative base with a push to win back votes from the far-right Alternative for Germany, or AfD. Next, Alice Weidel of the far-right AfD. Weidel's candidacy has shaken Germany's political dynamics. An economist by training, fluent in Mandarin, Weidel presents a modern face for a party often criticized for its far-right views. Under her leadership, the AfD has gained substantial support by focusing on strict immigration policies and calling for the tighter border controls. Olaf Scholz, of course the incumbent chancellor from the Social Democratic Party, or SPD, is seeking a second term. However, persistent infighting within the coalition and a struggling economy have weakened his position, with polls showing the SPD trailing behind the Conservative and the AfD. Rounding up the list is Robert Habeck of the Greens. Currently serving as Germany's Vice-Chancellor and Economy Minister, Habeck gained popularity by leading the Greens through a successful period of growth. However, his policies on transitioning from fossil fuels to greener alternatives have drawn mixed reactions. Now, as Germany prepares to vote, the world is watching. The key issues dominating the elections include Germany's approach to the war in Ukraine, economic recovery, and migration. With Nancy Baloda, Amit Mukherjee for DD India.
Kash Patel took oath as the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation on Saturday, placing his hand on the holy book, the Bhagavad Gita, and he became the 9th person to lead the agency. The oath ceremony was administered by the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi in the Indian Treaty Room in the Eisenhower Building, or the Executive Office Building of the White House, which is on the campus of the White House in Washington, D.C. Now, following the oath, Patel said that he was living the American dream and added that a first-generation Indian is about to lead the law enforcement agency of the greatest nation on earth, unquote. And he also made the strong commitment to ensure accountability within the FBI. The U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed his strong support for Kash Patel and called him a tough and strong person.
You're talking to a first-generation Indian kid who's about to lead the law enforcement community of the greatest nation on God's green earth. That can't happen anywhere else. There will be accountability within the FBI and outside of the FBI, and we will do it through rigorous constitutional oversight starting this weekend.
U.S. President Donald Trump ordered his trade chief to revive investigations aimed at imposing tariffs on imports from countries that levy digital services taxes on U.S. technology companies. A White House official providing details of the order said that Trump was directing his administration to consider responsive actions like tariffs to combat the digital services tax, the fines, practices and policies that foreign governments levy on American companies. The digital service taxes, these are aimed at dominant U.S. tech companies, including Alphabet's Google, Meta's Facebook, Apple, and Amazon. And they have been a long-standing trade irritant for multiple U.S. administrations. Britain, France, Italy, Spain, Turkey, India, Austria, as well as Canada have levied the taxes on sales revenues by these and other digital service providers within their borders. The United Nations Security Council on Friday called on Rwanda's military to stop supporting the M23 rebel group in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and immediately withdraw all troops from the Congolese territory without preconditions. The 15-member council unanimously adopted a French-drafted resolution urging the DRC and Rwanda to return to diplomatic talks to achieve a lasting peaceful resolution. The UN resolution strongly condemns the ongoing offensive and advances of the M23 in North Kivu and South Kivu with the support of Rwanda Defense Forces and demands that M23 immediately stop its hostilities and withdraw. France's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Nicolas da Riviere, said the resolution sends a clear message that there is no military resolution or there is no military solution to the conflict in the east of the DRC.
The Rwandan forces must without delay withdraw from Congolese territory, as has already been declared by the United Nations Secretary General as well as the members of the Security Council. MONUSCO needs to be able to carry out the mandate for the benefit of civilian population without being obstructed in its efforts or its freedom of movement.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Friday called for an immediate ceasefire in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo in a phone conversation with the Kenyan President William Ruto. And both leaders discussed the ongoing conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, including what they call the unacceptable capture of Goma and Bukavu by the Rwanda-backed M23 armed group. Los Angeles' Mayor Karen Bass sacked the city's fire chief on Friday, blaming her for the leadership failures in the handling of the deadly blazes that tore through California, the metropolis, in January. Now, the axing of Christian Crowley comes 6 weeks after America's second most populous city was ravaged by fires that left at least 29 people dead and vast areas in ruins. At a news conference, the mayor said she is removing the chief, Christian Crowley, immediately and has called for a full investigation of everything leading up to the January 7 fires.
Acting in the best interest of Los Angeles public safety and for the operations of the Los Angeles Fire Department, I just met with Chief Crowley and removed her as fire chief. I have appointed a 41-year veteran of the fire department, former Chief Deputy Ronald Villanueva, as interim fire chief. As you know, I have called for a full investigation of everything leading up to January 7th.
Still to come here on DD India Live. The Mahakumbh prepares for Mahashivaratri on February 26. International Masters League in Navi Mumbai to feature legends like Tendulkar and Yuvraj Singh. A surreal sound and light experience at the 350-year-old St. Paul's Cathedral in London.
we are looking at the phenomenon that is remaking all aspects of life, digital public infrastructure, DPI. What is India's role in the development of DPI, both domestically and globally? And what are India's strengths in this field, and how is India helping to remake the global digital order?
Traditionally, India has always been at least for the bigger technology solutions, we've always been takers of technology rather than givers of technology. And I think there is a sense of pride that is associated with taking your technology to the rest of the world.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Mark Lynn. Foreign ministers from the G20's leading economies are meeting in South Africa's Johannesburg. Despite common interests, the group remains divided on critical issues such as the Russia-Ukraine conflict and climate change. Now, amid these developments, India's External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar has assured of India's support for South Africa's G20 priorities. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay reports. South Africa is hosting the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Johannesburg. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jai Shankar, who is on a two-day visit to South Africa to participate in the G20 meet, assured India's support for South Africa's G20 priorities. Delivering his remarks during the session on G20 objectives in 2025, Johannesburg, Jai Shankar said, "We are supportive of the priorities of the South African presidency. They gel well with what India has advocated both nationally as well as during its own G20 presidency. On international disaster response, we support strong frameworks for preparedness, emergency response, recovery and reconstruction. India initiated the Coalition of Disaster Resilient Infrastructure in 2019. On financing a just energy transition, India has always believed that it must be affordable and equitable while considering the growth imperatives and differentiated responsibilities of developing countries." On the sidelines of the G20 foreign ministers meet, Jai Shankar met his counterparts from other countries. Jai Shankar met his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. Both leaders highlighted the importance of cooperation between the two countries in preserving and protecting a multilateral body like the G20.
External Affairs Minister and Chinese Foreign Minister, His Excellency Wang Yi, met on the sidelines of G20. The meeting lasted for about 30 minutes. The two ministers reviewed developments in our bilateral relationship since their last meeting in November, specifically the management of peace and tranquility in border areas, Kailash Mansarovar Yatra resumption, trans-border rivers, flight connectivity and travel facilitation were discussed. There was also an exchange of views on G20 and SCO.
Later, he also held a trilateral meeting with foreign ministers of Australia and France. Jai Shankar also met with the foreign minister Ahmed Attaf of Algeria. Discussion was held on partnership and cooperation in multilateral arena. Developments in West Asia also came up in their discussion. Jai Shankar also met with the foreign minister of Ireland, Simon Harris. South Africa will hold the G20 presidency from the 1st of December 2024 to the 30th of November 2025. To tackle the global poly crisis, South Africa has embraced the theme Solidarity, Equality, Sustainability for its G20 presidency. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India. And here's a report by DD India correspondent Nazneen Ismail from Johannesburg on the External Affairs Minister's meeting with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in South Africa.
Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held a bilateral meeting with his Chinese counterpart Minister Wang Yi. During the meeting, Dr. Jaishankar emphasized that in a polarized global landscape, both India and China have worked diligently to preserve and protect the G20 as a key international institution. He noted that this collaborative effort highlights the significance of international cooperation in addressing global challenges.
I'm very glad we could meet today on the sidelines of the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Johannesburg. Since our last meeting in Rio during the G20 summit in November 2024, there have been some notable developments. Our NSA and Foreign Secretary have visited China, and there have been discussions about various aspects of our relationship. These have included management of peace and tranquility in the border areas, as well as other dimensions of our ties. I'm glad today to have a further exchange of views.
In our bilateral relationship, the most important thing last year is the summit meeting between President Xi and Prime Minister Modi in Kazan. Our leaders set out the overall direction of improving this relationship, and our leaders reaffirmed that China and India, as two Asian civilizations and as neighbors, should engage in mutually beneficial cooperation.
G20 meetings shall continue for the rest of the year, with the finance ministers gathering in the mother city Cape Town next week. I'm Nazneen for DD India, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Tourism Malaysia is participating for the 21st time in one of India's largest tourism fairs, the South Asia Travel and Tourism Exchange, SATE. Now, this event is being held in New Delhi from February 19 to 21, and through this, there is a continuous effort to maintain Malaysia as a preferred tourist destination in the minds of Indian travellers. Manish Bhajpai reports.
In an effort to elevate tourism to new heights, the South Asia Travel and Tourism Exchange, known as SATE, is being held at Yashobhumi in New Delhi. Stakeholders from several countries involved in tourism took part in the event. Tourism Malaysia intends to focus on unique approaches such as shopping, golfing, luxury tourism, soft tourism, theme parks and honeymoon packages to inspire the Global Visit 2026 campaign at this year's SATE. Consequently, Tourism Malaysia is also leveraging niche areas like MICE, which stands for Meetings, Incentives, Conferences and Exhibitions and Weddings. The Malaysian delegation is led by Ahmed Johari Muhammad Ali, Director of the Tourism Malaysia New Delhi office, and includes 60 organizations.
Indian travelers, being among our most valued guests, will remain at the heart of our tourism initiatives. The Malaysian government prioritizes the safety, comfort and satisfaction of all tourists. We are dedicated to implementing policies that uphold the highest standards of hospitality and professionalism across our tourism sector.
Earlier this week, Tourism Malaysia launched the Visit Malaysia Year 2026 campaign at an event in New Delhi. This event was inaugurated by High Commissioner of Malaysia in India, Dato Muzaffar Shah Mustafa, and Director of Tourism Malaysia in Delhi, Ahmed Johari Muhammad Ali.
In fact, this objective or these activities is the main objective to brand Malaysia as the tourist destination for the Indian travelers and to strengthen the ties between Malaysian industry and the Indian industry.
There has been an extraordinary surge in the footfall of Indian tourists to Malaysia. Between January and December 2024, more than 10 lakh Indian tourists visited Malaysia. This represents a 47% increase compared to 2019 and a 71.7% increase from 2023, indicating Malaysia's growing preference as a top destination among Indian travelers. India remains Malaysia's second largest tourism market for medium-haul travel after China, and Tourism Malaysia is committed to strengthening this relationship further. Manish Vajpayi's report for DD India.
With the final bathing festival of Mahakumbh 2025 set to take place on Mahashivratri on February 26, marking the conclusion of the 45-day festival, once in 12-year fair in fact, officials have ramped up preparations to ensure seamless arrangements for devotees. The state government is closely monitoring attempts to disrupt the sanctity of the Mahakumbh through misleading social media posts. Injury-hit Australia will face England in their opening match of the Champions League in Lahore on Saturday. The 50 overs world champions, they go into their opener on the back of a defeat, in fact, in Sri Lanka, and no warm-up matches in Pakistani conditions. Australia's bowling will rest largely on the shoulders of fringe pacemen after their frontline bowlers pulled out of the tournament due to injury or personal reasons. For England, Jamie Smith will return from injury to keep wickets and bat at number 3. The 24-year-old missed England's recent humbling 3-0 loss to India because of a calf injury. Phil Salt retains his spot in the opening partnership alongside Ben Duckett, with Joe Root, Harry Brook, Jos Buttler and Liam Livingstone shuffling down the order to accommodate Smith. Now, cricket legends Sachin Tendulkar and Yuvraj Singh, they are set to reunite on the field after a decade, donning the iconic blues once again. The legendary duo will lead the Indian Masters team against Sri Lanka in the opening clash of the inaugural International Masters League in Navi Mumbai on Saturday. Beginning on February 22, this tournament features iconic cricketers from 6 teams: India, Sri Lanka, Australia, England, West Indies and South Africa. The final will take place on the 16th of March. London's St. Paul's Cathedral was immersed in light and sound, transporting visitors into a surreal experience. The artist who created this light show called it a beautiful marriage between the building and art. We leave you with glimpses of light and art on this 350-year-old building. Thanks very much for watching DD India Live, and if you could give us your thoughts on the news of the day as well. And for those of you on the go, you can get the latest news and updates as well from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app.